Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 5 o'clock Hustle podcast. You are listening to episode number 25. Now, we're supposed to release a squadcast this week, but we decided to release another interview. With that said, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be disappointed because we have an incredible guest this week, and his name is Justin Bua. If you don't know him by name, I guarantee you know him by his work. Justin Bua is one of the most relevant and recognizable artists living today. His raw imagery has made its way from the streets and college campuses of New York City to the mainstream of big box stores like Target. From celebrities to the Fortune 500, people have sought out Bua's originals for decades, and he hasn't slowed down one bit. He's a painter, he's an author, a speaker, a fellow podcaster, and yes, an entrepreneur. In this episode, we talk about Bua's upbringing, how he balances the process of his work in art and business, and he gives both artists and entrepreneurs some incredible advice on the importance of being authentic at anything you do. Okay, now before I start the episode, I want to share a product with you that is going to help you tap into your inner Bua. Imagine a pill you could take that almost immediately enhances your creativity, your focus, support energy, mental clarity, mood, and memory. Well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, we have something for you that does just that. I'm talking about the Neurohacker Collective's Qualia, and more specifically, their new formulation, Qualia Mind. Now, don't take it from me. Take it from Navy SEAL Mark Devine, or Nat Geo's Jason Silva, or endurance athlete and biohacker Ben Greenfield. People like myself and these incredible figures are using this stuff and can't say much other than it works for me and it could work for you too. If you think you might need help with any of the benefits I listed, I highly suggest you give it a try. And to make it a little easier, you can use our discount code to save 10% off your first order. So use code HUSTLE. That's HUSTLE, and you'll get 10% off or 15% off your first shipment if you get a subscription. And once you try it out, please send us a tweet or an email and let us know what you think. I'm really curious because it did wonders for me, and I want to know if it does for you too. All right, I'm going to stop talking now. Let's get this episode started. And remember, if you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It's the best way to support the show, and all it costs you is 45 seconds of your time. We really appreciate it. And after you listen, go check out Bua's podcast. It's called The Art Attack. And since recording, it's now in my top 5. So I highly suggest you add it to your playlist. It's an awesome show. Okay, everybody, enjoy the episode. And as always, keep hustling. And Dre, start the show.
5 o'clock hustle.
5 o'clock hustle, bro.
5 o'clock.
5 to 8, 5 to 12, 5 to 3 until you get back up the next morning.
Every week I got a new idea.
And that's what it always is, right? It's crazy.
5 o'clock.
I was doing that in 2005, but everybody thought it was weird.
5 o'clock.
Thus, the side hustle was created.
5 o'clock hustle podcast.
Man, they're having so much fun.
So yeah, we're there's a lot of ways we can go with this podcast. Primarily, we talk to people who have thoughts and ideas about how to progress one's business, and
Specifically, one side hustle.
yeah, and we've had other artists on before, but I'm really intrigued by your story and what you've done, just because you are probably the most world-renowned painters living today, and that's like not to say that like I just can't.
I don't know if that's true, but thank you.
Well, like from our perspective though, as like
Sure.
business people, when we're just thinking about making a sell and trying to just
Sure.
do whatever we can, we're
Look here. What's everything you're doing right now? That's one thing I really think we should cover as a bunch of prospective hustlers. Give us the rundown.
Let's break down what you said before, though, because
Cool.
there's a big difference between popularity and success, as there is difference from economic success and spiritual success.
Absolutely.
So there's a certain popularity that my work has because of the complete randomness of the time and the place and what was happening in the retail market with my work. So let me just explain that. So
Please.
I came to the poster market. I started off in the commercial industry doing skateboards and storyboards. I drew well. I didn't really paint well. And I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena from New York City as a transplant to LA. I liked it here. It was warm. It was comfortable. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to just stick it here. I got into the entertainment industry as, like I said, a storyboard artist. And then eventually I progressed to doing more commercial works like record covers, book covers, editorial advertising campaigns. And in 1992, I found my real voice, which was an opportunity to do posters and distribute it on a mass scale. I wasn't the manufacturer or the publisher. I was merely the artist working for a publisher, and he put my work out there. And that's how I gained my popularity, because my work was, one of the best-selling artists of the time. And in an industry where you really don't have a lot of longevity, it's an industry that comes in ebbs and flows. So I rode the wave from 92 till about 2012.
How did you come into that opportunity?
I had a distributor in New York who liked my work and thought that he could kind of utilize my urban-centric narrative of jazz, because I painted a lot of jazz imagery, to really get into, to hit a certain audience. And that's what I did. I did specifically what he wanted me to do. And it wasn't until 2001 that I said, hey, you got to give me an opportunity to paint something that I'm really familiar with. And that was the stories and characters of my world of New York City, uptown in Manhattan, because I came from the nucleus of the birth of hip hop.
Yeah.
And I was a professional b-boy, and I wrote graffiti. And so I said, just give me the opportunity to paint a DJ. And he was like, a DJ? That's ridiculous. Like, no one's going to buy that. No one had ever painted a DJ before. It was crazy. And so I just said, yeah, you know what, though? I've given you a lot of paintings that have been successful for you. You've made a lot of money. I didn't make a lot of money from it. I found out later on that actually, he penny pinched and cut corners. And so that, the live and learn, right? That's what makes you a better business person as a hustler. So he gave me the opportunity. He was right at first. All the buyers in America said, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to be interested in buying a DJ. He has no fame, no popularity. Nobody knows what a DJ is except the underground. And then I had a company. I was very big in the college market. And so I had a company named Imaginus, which sold at every single college campus in all of Canada.
Nice.
And they literally started selling thousands overnight. So everybody in the States was like, oh, I got to get a hold of that DJ print. And it was like, yeah, the one that you didn't want to buy in the first place.
Right.
Because when you lead, people follow, and people are sheepish. And so they follow trends. And the trend is, if they're going to make money, then they're going to buy into the idea of whatever it is. In this case, it was a DJ painting.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's that network like? I mean, when you say that you're selling throughout Canada and then kind of word spreads like wildfire, like what does that actually look like in the painting and poster industry? I mean, is that just because you're with, the name was Imaginus?
It was a company that sold to colleges named Imaginus. So
okay. Yeah.
I never met them. I wound up doing business with them later as an individual publisher of my own work, because I wound up taking up the business under my umbrella.
Oh, okay.
But before that, I had no idea. All I knew was that it was this college company, and they would literally, have buttloads of prints that they would load in vans or trucks, and they would pull up to college campuses. They had contracts with colleges, and they probably get their young sellers, and they sell all their stuff. So eventually that stuff started selling like crazy. And what happened was all of the poster shops started to change. There was no more. You remember back in the days in the 90s, there were so many poster shops. In the 80s, rock and roll paraphernalia, record stores. I mean, you name it. Remember Tower Records out here?
We're laughing our asses off over here because you can imagine your bedrooms when you were growing up or in that era, and it was like, it's so different nowadays.
Posters.
Yeah, poster.
It's so different. So what happened was all of the mom and pop stores went out of business because the chains, the retailers said, we're going to get into that business. Now, once the retailers get into that business, whether you're Walmart or Target, you've got 3,500 stores, 7,000 stores, Bed Bath & Beyond, Burlington Co. Factory, Z Gallery, Prince Plus, Deck the Walls, you name it. The mom and pops couldn't exist. So they were like poster shops / frame shops or poster shops / paraphernalia shops. Those people went out of business. They couldn't survive because the margins got so low. Now, lucky, I was still riding the wave because I went from the mom and pop, from being the darling in the mom and pop stores, and then I kind of scooted over and I rode the retail market. So my work was still selling like hotcakes at Target and Bed Bath & Beyond, and that was, I was lucky. That was luck, and that was a lot of meetings and a lot of, negotiations, and it was really, they didn't really care about my work. Target doesn't buy necessarily based on content. They'll tell you they do, but they have things called planograms. So how does it fit into the planogram?
Cogs.
Is it a vertical? Is it a horizontal?
Yeah.
So the market changed. And so after a while, that market died, but I was lucky to ride that wave, and I was like, one of the top sellers at Target and Bed Bath & Beyond. And so that was kind of my journey in that market.
Okay.
Where was that? How does that transition happen? Getting on, on these college campuses, and then, getting into these, big stores. Like, is there?
Are you reaching out to them, or the buyers reaching out to you? I know it doesn't usually happen. The buyers will actually reach out to people. So did you have representation, or were you just going around touting numbers and popularity?
Well, I made the mistake, or the educated mistake, because I paid to get an education outside of college on top of my BFA, right? I got my master's of business by being a business fuck up. And so I lost a lot of business by, I lost a lot of money. I made a lot of money. I lost a lot of money because I didn't know how to do it, but I knew that, I knew how to talk about my work. I knew how to talk about art, and I knew how to sell, and I knew how to hustle. Because at the end of the day, you're just peddling your own goods. I had a bunch of people working for me, employees, freelancers, 1099ers. I just had a whole team of people. So my people were reaching out. I was reaching out. I had good relationships with buyers who were middle people. The industry is very complicated. I won't bore you with it, but the point is that I luckily, some of the buyers that were buying my stuff early on adapted to the new business model and had relationships with the major retailers. Cool. And so I rode that market until at one point at Target, I had a gift bag with one company, I had a calendar with another company, and I had posters with another company. Yeah. So it was like I was in 3 parts of Target with 3 different buyers.
Wow.
But, that market died. And now I do G. Clay limited edition prints because that's a higher end market, and I sell original. So you always have to adapt. It's adapt or die. You know how it is.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually really familiar with the retail space. The last company I worked with, we were still distributing art prints to retailers. So there's lots of overlap actually there, and I'm familiar with that. So
what kind of art prints were you selling to retailers?
Well, so I was running business development for an organization that basically ran 7 different properties, 2 apps and 5 customer-facing websites. So they were customized art prints for the most part. What we would do is license in, the most popular designs, and then it was just whatever was hitting at the moment. But we did a lot of actual prints. We did a lot of phone cases, all things of that sort. So I'm really familiar with that industry. You said planograms, and it brought back a whole nother pogs, a whole nother piece of my life. But oh gosh,
the first time I heard that, I was like, "Well, what do you mean you don't want it because it's horizontal?" They're like, "Well, we can't do anything horizontal. We need a vertical." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, and you're refreshing your pog in October. What? Like, how does that work?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, no,
and we were dealing with Sarah before, but now you're dealing with a whole new buyer because the turnover there is so fast.
Yeah.
Now you've got to like do your whole, shuck and jive and for a new person.
But
you got to do the whole dance.
Absolutely. So that's one thing I want to bring up too. I guess I didn't know I wanted to bring it up, but network, especially in the retail industry, but in any industry, it's so important. I mean, the retail industry specifically is super incestuous, and it's like you're saying, Sarah is here. But what everyone should know is that when Sarah leaves Staples, she's going to Office Depot. So it's,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying?
It's
So
a
it actually
revolving
works
door.
out. Absolutely. It's all about those
And
relationships.
also, let's not forget the famous line that your network is your net worth.
Sure.
So, you're only as wealthy as the people and the relationship you've cultivated around you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in retail. It's a dying place. And so there's this moment that, and maybe it's not a moment, but it's a makeup of moments when there needs to be a pivot. How did that come about?
Well, I just was not seeing in that market. And so at that point, before the ship went all the way down and sunk, the markets that I was in, because of my price points, because I was manufactured here and I demanded higher price points, they just went overseas and they licensed free shit from China.
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, the major retailers, wherever they're getting the work from, the license is super cheap.
Yeah.
So what they would do with my prints is they would do a process called sublimation. They buy my painting and they heat transfer it to a balsa wood board so it looks like a canvas.
Yeah.
So they would take a paper print, suck it onto wood, make it look like a canvas. I don't know what I got paid, somewhere like $2 or $3 per, and then it would be a target for like $50, but it would be a ready to hang canvas. So I said, you know what? I know this is going to die. I don't know when, but I'm going to jump ship now because it's, people are buying less and less and less and less. And
Sure.
I'm seeing other work there. I'm seeing copies of my work. Artists are starting to come out and, want to be facsimiles, just perpetrating the fraud of my work. And then there's the whole other industry of my work going on in places like Vietnam, where they're just basically making copies of my work and selling them to retailers as well.
Oh, nice.
So it's either paint by numbers, where they would project my image and paint by number, or they would actually print my black and white onto a canvas, and then they would color it in. So, and then they would sign it like, John or Juan or whatever,
Jeez.
because then it's not forgery, because forgery is punishable and enforceable by federal laws.
Yeah.
All it is fraud. And try litigating fraud overseas. Impossible. So you're chasing your own tail. So I had to let that industry go, but because I did posters, I was printing 3,000, 6,000, 10,000 at a time. And then people are going to rip you off when you're that popular. So I started doing less limited, runs. I became less copied. So the popularity waned a little bit as well. But at the same time, I started doing higher price points, higher margins, less overhead. I didn't have to store my stuff. I didn't have to deal with it. So yeah, that's what I started doing for that arm of my business. I'm just talking about one aspect of what I was doing in my business.
How did you find out? I mean, what's the time, the setting? Like what year was this when all this, I mean, when you're talking about, things happening over in Vietnam or different infringement and things like that. When was that happening? What year specifically? Do you remember?
It's happening to this day, but I started to see, I remember walking in New York and seeing a copy of my El Guitarrista painting. And I was like, I know I didn't paint that because it's really poorly painted.
Because it was done by John.
Right. It was done by John. Who knows what level of painter he is.
No.
He's not even a good painter.
Yeah.
So I was like, God damn, what's going on? And then, I think that was kind of the beginning of, and then people sending me pictures. Hey, man, I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Check this giant mural you did.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? It was, in fact, it was everywhere. It was omnipresent. But like Aristotle says, imitation is the purest form of flattery. So I'm not butthurt about it. I'm just like, that's the way it was. At first I was angry and I was trying to always figure stuff out and kind of quell it. eBay was a big place where people were going crazy with my work. All kinds of frauds, all kinds of ripoffs. I would shut it down, and then they would just pop up again.
Yep,
You got roaches, you can spray Raid, but if the building has roaches, you're going to have roaches in a week or a month. They're going to proliferate and come back. They don't die.
Yeah.
Set off a nuclear bomb, they don't die. So, the copycats I equate them to the roaches. You just let the roaches live, and let them do what they're going to do. They're not going to affect your food source. You're just going to have to live amongst them.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking the exact same thing right when you said it was the imitation is the highest form of flattery line. And, you know, is there part of that? And you kind of were alluding to it a little bit here in your last comment, but has any of that been, do you think, beneficial to your brand? Yeah.
Absolutely. Because the work is ubiquitous and, you know, people know it. There's a recognition that recognition is something that permeates people's mind. Like, oh my God, you know, I know your work, and however they've seen it. Maybe they haven't seen my work from me. Maybe they've seen my work from John. Maybe they've seen my work on a TV show I did, or on a record cover, or whatever. Maybe at Target, but I've gotten work from that. So, you know, it goes back to the old adage: any publicity is good publicity.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's incredible, man. So let's talk a little bit about, well, I have an interesting question, actually. I've always wondered when I'm going to be able to say that I Deanified something. And you are fortunate enough through how you've inspired the world to be able to booify something. How, I mean, you're aware of that, right? I mean, I'm sure you're aware. I know you're aware of that, actually. When did that take place? You know, like, I mean, when did you become a verb? Like, how does that even work? I mean, what does it take, you know? That seems pretty neat.
I just see the world in a different way. And I think every artist that I love has a unique style, you know, whether it's Tamara de Lempicka. I was looking at her today. She's just like, everything's so boxed and Art Deco and designed, and, you know, Picasso, many different styles, actually, you know, Toulouse-Lautrec and Degas and Renoir and Bonnard and Vuillard. The list goes on and on. I mean, so my specific style really lends itself to the lens that I saw the world in, which was a very distorted, magnified, obfuscated perspective. It was very bizarre. My culture I grew up in was a very bizarre world. You know, I'm growing up, think about the climate, you know, I'll paint this picture. You know, I'm born in 1968, 1970s. I'm growing up in New York. It's rife with poverty. It's rife with homelessness. It's a very also intellectual climate on the Upper West Side. There were writers, there were artists, there were drug dealers, there were poets, there were murderers. You know what I mean? We had this crazy eclectic world. I had 2 welfare hotels on my block and 200 welfare hotels in my neighborhood alone. And then Reagan comes in, and you've got Reaganomics, and Reagan shuts down mental facilities, and he drops, they're busing people into my neighborhood and dropping off people from Willow Creek and Creedmoor, which is these 2 mental facilities where these people are off their meds on the streets. And here's my reality.
Shit.
Okay, so I'm basically living a life where I feel like I'm on acid. It's like Hunter Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And so you see this, I'm seeing the world through this lens of bizarreness, because there is a lot of drugs, you know, and there's a lot of craziness. And the craziness to me is very normalized. So that's just the way that I'm navigating New York City is very normal. And there's also a lot of violence. You know, I was involved as a kid in a lot of violent situations. I was robbed at gunpoint. I was shot at. I was stabbed in my back. I got into a lot of fights.
Jeez.
It was just a killer be killed kind of reality. And then my home life had its own insanity. It wasn't a lot of peace. And so I think that the energy and the vitality of my work comes a lot from the energy and vitality of New York City. Because when you live in New York, especially during that time, it just was crazy. And so this is crazy. Yeah. You know, I see the world through a crazy perspective, a crazy lens. And sometimes that's, good, and sometimes that's bad. I feel like I was a child who had a fucked up childhood, but I was able to, put that into my work and plug it in to positive effect.
Yeah, you channeled it, yeah.
Now, that's
like most artists.
Yeah, sure. And you went through this because for most people, they have to it takes some time for them to come to a situation where they feel like they need to redirect their entire being and kind of give themselves a different purpose. But for you, it was kind of built in. Like you said, it was such a young age. You had to deal with so much like anguish for so many years. But eventually you reached a certain amount of success and it stopped. And how did you deal with that?
What stopped? The anguage?
Yeah, I'm sure there's.
Never stops, man.
I think there's something. Obviously,
he's still dark and angry. Yeah.
But I'm saying in terms of your environment, the transition of like being in that kind of situation to a situation where you didn't have to deal with those kind of struggles anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Right. No, I mean, it definitely you get addicted to the peace and the tranquility, and I think that's what I gravitate towards. For a while, I think I was, craving drama because we're used to it. Unfortunately, it's like being in an abusive relationship. We can't admit it, but we're like, damn, I'm in this really weird abusive relationship, and you see it with friends or people, and you're just like, damn, how could they not see that? But you can't see how crazy and frenetic your life is.
Yeah.
So it was a really good thing to be able to kind of take a step back and to grow up and to realize that, damn, I don't, that's not the life that I want to live. And that doesn't make you an artist. You know what I mean? You don't need chaos. A lot of artists feel like they need chaos and drama and all kinds of, insanity to be an artist. And I definitely don't think that's true. It might be true. I mean, who is the ultimate, and I'll ask you guys this, who's the quintessential ultimate artist that people consider like the cliche artist?
So I'm sorry to say that I know the question and I might know where you're going with it, but I'm gonna let's go with Michelangelo.
I would say it would be Van Gogh.
Van Gogh. Okay.
And Michelangelo, by the way, Michelangelo's a great choice because I would only say Van Gogh because he cut his own ear off. Right? I'm so disturbed. I'm so far on. I have to mutilate. I'm going to partake in self-mutilation because I'm so. And people are like, oh my God, he's such a great artist. Michelangelo too. Michelangelo, he's so disturbed. He's so driven. Leave me alone. Don't talk to me. Yeah. I'm completely disgruntled. 24 hours. So I'm tiny. I'm ugly. I'm angry. Like that's how Michelangelo was, right? He was bitter. But then you look at artists like Manet, great life.
Yeah.
Leonardo, in a lot of ways, great life. Leonardo da Vinci, not DiCaprio.
Sure. Yeah, not DiCaprio. Great life too, though.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, hey, no doubt.
Maybe more fucked up than the rest of them. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. Leonardo DiCaprio, definitely great life. But you don't have to have that kind of existence in order to be successful. So
yeah, it kind of reminds me of a lot of comedians because you have these people who are they're clean with their jokes, and then you have the other people who are just just disgruntled human beings, and it really kind of comes with like the mindset of that person. You can make it work either way, I guess. Yeah. But a lot of people, the pain stays with people, I think. Yeah. And
I do too.
It's just like another way to kind of just amplify your voice, I think.
So you don't have to be.
Well, people get addicted to it. You get addicted to it. You get addicted to the pain.
How do you break
and
that
you get
persona?
Addicted to the story.
I mean, you've done
it.
it.
You get addicted to the story.
Yeah.
You just realize, like, come on, man, this is ridiculous.
How about
I'm getting older now. I don't need the bullshit. You don't want to deal with the bullshit. So that's how you get over
that. Are you by any chance familiar with Jeff Goins' work?
I am not.
Okay,
I might be if you showed it to me, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no worries. So he's actually
he's a writer.
He's a speaker and he's a writer. And one of his more famous books was Real Artists Don't Starve. And basically, I guess it's the other side of the coin of what you're saying. It's kind of on the same side of the coin. That's a stupid way to put it. But you're saying you don't necessarily have to be crazy to be an artist, and he's saying you don't necessarily have to starve to be an artist. You don't need to be broke.
I agree.
And there's this this picture that our society is painted about what an artist should look like, how they should feel, how they should dress, their, what house they should live in. And it's kind of all bullshit. And I think it's really refreshing to hear you say that. It's awesome.
Yes.
Because we want people to be comfortable.
And that being said, there are definitely people who are fucked up, and a lot of people that are fucked up are comedians, and they are artists, and that doesn't mean that they're not, incredible talents. I mean, look at, Richard Pryor. He was an addict. There's a lot of addicts, Carlin. Doesn't mean that they weren't incredibly talented, but I don't believe that, I think you're right. I don't think that people have to have fucked up lives and be miserable and to stay in the pocket to be an artist. I think that's bullshit.
Now, does the caricature form of you who is crazy and broke think you're full of shit?
Me?
I'm just messing with you. I don't. Who knows?
I'm kidding.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think it's not. I've been broke. It's not fun to be broke. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm blessed. I feel lucky. That's my greatest fear, though, that I will be broke and not be able to pay, all my bills and all the people in my lives' bills. I definitely feel like that would be really bad because I don't really come from much. I was not a silver spooner, as you can imagine. So it's not. It's definitely, but at the same time, I'm not very frugal and good with money. You know what I mean? Like, over the years, I've learned to be better, but I haven't been great. I've definitely, blown a lot of it. I haven't done, I'm not talking about MC Hammer type of blown, you know what I mean? 'Cause, you know what I mean? If I had his money, I feel like I'd have been all right. But I feel like I could have managed my money better. No regrets. That being said, I feel like I've learned a lot. But, I'm learning. I'm a student, and I'm always going to be a student of everything, not just of painting, but of business and money and finances. And I'm just a student, man. I'm just learning with everything.
Now, how does that fear actually drive your decision-making process when it comes to creating new art and, I guess, new business?
I'm always looking for something that's intriguing, something that's interesting. I've had businesses that have gone bad. I had a chocolate bar company. I had a company called the Bua Bar for a while. It was a great bar. It was super high quality, raw, vegan, organic, with really super cool packaging. But to get into that marketplace, I'll explain it like, I thought I could get through this wall, this chocolate wall, and I thought I was just going to be able to run right through it to the other side. But I didn't realize I had never had a chance to get through that wall. I just no way that I could get into to the other side. Yeah. And so every time, every month that went by, I realized I was just taking money and flushing it down the toilet. So that wasn't, even though I thought I put out great product and I did great stuff. In fact, I ran into somebody today and was like, "Oh, you Justin Blue?" I said, "Yeah." And I thought he was going to say, "I love your work." He said, "Man, I love your chocolate bar." I was like, "Oh, shit." Like, damn, this motherfucker remembers the chocolate bar. But it affected people because I feel like it was art. It was like artisan chocolate. It was art. It was beautiful. But I couldn't sustain the business because it was a different space. And you have to stick to your lane to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that. So I do another product called Immortal Machine, which is a superfood drink mix that I do with the people at Longevity Warehouse. And that product is delicious, nutritious, and that's done really well for me. It's a superfood drink mix. Some ventures do great, like my TV show. I had a show on Oxygen 2 years ago. We did 12 episodes that I was the executive producer, the host, and the judge of. That did well, but we didn't get picked up for a second season.
Okay, sure.
I'm working on 2 shows right now. I've done animated shows for Comedy Central. I've done many shows. I've done movies. I've done development work. I've done sneakers. I've done a T-shirt, clothing line, apparel. I've ventured into so many different areas, but I always come back to painting and drawing because if you look at the streams of revenue over the years, right, the average millionaire has 6 streams of revenue. That's what That's the I read that. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have 6 streams of revenue. Yeah. And I feel like but I keep going back to my stream, which is the most powerful, which is originals. My originals are what has kept me alive, because without my originals, I couldn't survive on the money I made from phone cases, on the money I made from my sneaker line, on the money I made from the money I lost from my chocolate bar. The money I made from my apparel line, the money I made from posters. At one point, posters was close to my originals, but even when I was at the top of my game for posters, I really felt like originals was a much more powerful market, because what that was is a higher power telling me, bro, you're an artist. You know what? You might think you're a chocolatier, but you're an artist.
Yeah.
You might think you're a designer or a nutrition guy, but bro, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? So it was kind of like, get the fuck back in your lane, bitch. Okay. That was, by the way, the universe talking to me.
Yeah. And maybe some close family and friends too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, get your chocolate bar shit out. Let's make some artwork here.
Yeah, exactly.
But you like to try new things. We all like that. We're all entrepreneurs. I think that's incredible. Yeah. So you talk, one thing you talk about, or I've heard you talk about, is the formula for a caricature. And what I'm wondering is what would you say, and this is like super high level, we could probably take 5 hours talking about this, but what would you say is the formula for being a successful businessman creative? I don't know, how the hell did I just say that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to mix those two, it seems, or maybe that's just society saying it's hard to mix those two. So what's your secret to being so successful at it?
Well, that's a really good question, and I think that it's not a secret, because I'm still trying to figure that out. Fair. I think there's a delicate balance, because for a while, the person that handled my business was a lawyer for about 12 years, and we went our separate ways. And in the last year, I've been kind of on my own. My hustle has just been me. I have an assistant. I have a full-time assistant, 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, because I have to, because otherwise I just can't handle all my stuff. But the negotiation, it's me. The business, it's me. The creative, it's me. So I feel like what that comes down to be real with you, is honesty. So when I make a deal, for example, I'm trying to broker a deal right now with, RZA and Wu-Tang and his people, and I got like all these different things I'm doing. The Giants, San Francisco Giants, all these different deals. Whether it's
that LeBron,
Callaway,
by the way, oh God. That LeBron piece that was commissioned is I love that. But sorry to cut you off, but damn, that shit.
No, it's okay. That was for Nike, and that was kind of a shitty deal, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Did you negotiate that, or did your shit lawyer? I'm sorry, not your shit lawyer.
No, my lawyer
your old
did
friend.
that one, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, my lawyer did that one.
Okay.
But with Nike, it's kind of like they hand you the 500-page contract, and they say take it or leave it. And
Absolutely.
You go.
Yep.
But look at the effect it's had. Years later, you're saying to me, "Wow, I love that." So that's so cool, and that's why that was an important piece to do. So we made the right decision. So I usually feel I make the right decision, but what I do is I try to be really judicious, and I say, I want you to be happy, and I want me to be happy, whoever it is. I want everybody to leave this deal feeling satisfied. I don't want anyone leaving this deal feeling like they got taken advantage of, feeling like they don't want to work with me again, because at the end of the day, if it's a good deal for everybody, it's a good deal for me. So I'm going to take less money. When I start out the gate, I start out with a very honest negotiation. I say, this is really what I do it for. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but not much. But, I want you to, but at the end of the day, I want you to be happy, because that will make me happy. And so obviously deals vary from deal to deal, but if they're happy and I'm happy and there's a third party involved, they're happy, then we're good. Yeah. If they're like, God damn, man, I get ripped off, or if I feel like, you know what, I cannot believe this fucking deal. Yeah. I just got fucked. Like, I agreed to it, and I wanted the social media, and I wanted the Instagram hits, whatever. But I just feel like in my heart that I got screwed. That's not a good deal.
No.
So I try not to make that deal. I don't start the bullshit negotiations. When that happens, I go, hey man, let's stop right now. Let's recalibrate. Let's have a very honest conversation, because what you're trying to do is you're lowballing me to such a scumbag level that I'm not going to even respond to that. So let's have a real conversation, and let's see if we can get somewhere before we put anything down on paper. Because those days of lowballing, I can't do that anymore. I'm done.
Good for you.
Because first of all, it's a clue. I clue into who you are.
Yeah.
If you do that to me, then I feel like, okay, well, that's just not someone now that it happens all the time at high level TV deals and stuff like that. But I didn't just graduate college, man.
No.
With what I do, I'm a expert at what I do, so I should be treated like that.
Yeah.
And I believe that everybody should be treated at a high level and equal. So if you're going to come to me, no matter what, we're all going to leave happy.
Yeah, and I know that we're all human beings, but the reality is, I mean, I've been in that world. You have to earn that. You can't, you have to bring such a solid fucking game to the table that they actually believe you, or you really have to bring the stature and the credibility to it. So, that can be tough, but I have super respect where you're coming from. And I think that's if only every huge company approached things the way you do, negotiations would take 2 days instead of 2 years. I mean, it's just a reality.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because it ultimately winds up getting there. You're just wasting so much time getting there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the problem. I just cut the chase. I'm like, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Right now, we can bullshit. We can do all the bullshitting you want. You could lowball me, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to lowball you, and then you're going to come a little bit. And eventually we're going to meet in that middle place anyway.
Yep.
So let's just go meet there right now so we don't waste anybody's time.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Hard lesson, but apparently learned.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could talk about that for a long time. There's just that room, those conversations are just, they can be really frustrating, and then sometimes they can be gratifying. But I want to talk a little bit about when you got into the education game, and kind of really just sharing your expertise with not just showing people your artwork, but actually helping young artists develop their own voice.
Well, I started doing workshops, 16 years ago. I was just doing independent workshops, and my friend was teaching at USC, and he said, hey man, he was a visual development artist at DreamWorks at the time. And he said, I have so much work, man. Can you come in and sub? So I started subbing his classes. And then eventually he's like, I can't do this anymore. I have no time, but I want you to take my classes over. And I was like, oh my God, that's a lot, man. I can't, I got to be a teacher at USC. That's a lot of pressure. So he wound up handing off the gauntlet to me, or the baton, and I ran with it for 12 years. And after I realized that I didn't want to teach at USC anymore because it was just a lot, I was missing a lot and traveling all the time, I wound up just doing an online academy. And I did that for a couple of years too, and then that became too much. And so, now my education is free. I do a podcast with a very educated girl named Lizzie Daston, educated woman. She would think that's misogynistic, saying girl.
That's
not only she's
Art Attack?
educated, that's Art Attack.
Yeah.
So I do Art Attack, which is my podcast with Lizzie Daston, and she's a very decorated, art historian professor at UCLA. So, we don't get paid. We do it like you guys. We do it because we love it. And I feel like that is now my education, and I talk about all aspects of art, so I think that's kind of where it's all gone to. But every once in a while I do private lessons and stuff.
Now, is that directed towards artists themselves, or people who would like to learn to just appreciate art?
It's definitely more broad for people who just appreciate art, and I think everybody to some degree likes art, whether they know it or not. Everybody was an artist, whether they know it or not. Everybody, our first language of communication and means of communication is definitely markations on a paper and not the spoken word. So we don't have a command in the spoken word. We definitely are able to articulate ourselves in very deep levels with drawing, markations.
Right.
So I feel like and most people do love art. So I would say it is for the artist, but it's also for the average Joe who likes art. It doesn't have to be painting. It could be drawing. It could be sculpture. It could be performance art, contemporary art. I mean, Lizzie is way more into contemporary, modern, pop, abstracted art than I am. I'm much more traditional and into more, maybe into graffiti and comic books. That's where we overlap. Where she's actually a historian in terms of graffiti as well. But I learned, honestly, I love doing the podcast because I learned from her. I can't be how smart she is. So she kind of blows my mind. And then, when you talk about art, you start to feel your own process and go, when you teach about something, that's when you really learn about it, because you've done it intuitively. But then you start to teach about it and you go, well, wait a minute. I never really thought about how I do this. And you start breaking it down and dissecting it. And then it becomes a way deeper understanding of your craft. And that's like speaking about it as well. It's like, I didn't know it. I don't really talk about it, or I do it. I don't really break it down. You start doing that, and it takes you into another dimension of your own process. And that deepens it.
Absolutely. What if I had to say, for myself, for instance, I can say I like art, but I don't know really anything about it. What would you suggest to people, especially, our audience, who are widely focused on, starting a business and, doing that sort of thing? Like, where can people kind of, start, I guess?
I would say listen to our podcast, honestly, because we talk about everything. We talk about the business of art. We talk about classical art. We talk about contemporary art. We talk about what does it mean to be because art is life, and we're not just talking about artists like Picasso or Michelangelo, although we do delve, but we talk about process. And I think that the experience of art is very similar to business. And to be an artist, you have to be a businessman to a certain degree, or you're going to starve. You're going to cut your ear off and be you're going to be a Van Gogh cliche. So I think you could start there, and just really at the end of the day, it's what you love. Like, art is so subjective. Like, who are your guys' favorite painters? I know you say you don't know much about art or love art, but if you were to say, like, I really love the art of, besides me, like, who?
I was going to say Justin Boer. No, but honestly, like, I had your jazz trio print above my desk for, pretty much, mine, like, throughout high school, and then until my wife moved in and that room got turned into a baby room.
Yep, I get it.
Honestly, I've never looked at art as like well, how do I put this? In sports, I know the names of all my favorite athletes. In art, I just pick stuff off of the street, honestly. Like, I have this huge painting. I'll even send I'll send a little picture of it to you. It's this beautiful picture, darker colors of this. I guess she's set in like an older Spanish era. I call her Maria, and it's a huge wall, and she's this beautiful, like, Spanish woman that has on, like, a bonnet and like this huge dress, and she's looking kind of solemn. And I think it's just beautiful. I don't know why my wife kind of hates it, but so it's hidden in our den, in our recording studio. But I've never been able to look at art like, I have this person my favorite. I think I would love that. I think I'd be broke, because I'm the kind of person that if I see something that I love, I have to find a way to get it. And that's not to say that I have a lot of money. That's to say I'm equally as unfrugal as you are, to where, if I need something, especially artwork, I think artwork's really special in the way that I remember 6 years ago specifically, I was in Seattle, and I was going through this beautiful gallery. And I saw this painting, and it just spoke to me. It was crazy. It had like this volcanic feel about it. And there was a guy that was kind of standing. It was like this black figure. You couldn't make out anything about the person, but he was standing kind of in the middle of like this flat volcanic looking field. And there was one tree, and I remember it perfectly. And the reason I remember it so well is because I didn't buy it. And it haunts me. It haunts me because art speaks to me like that. But there are times when, and that was the last time that I saw something that spoke to me that I didn't find a way to purchase because it's just too important. But that being said, I couldn't tell you the name of any artist that I really admire. Even when you talk about Van Gogh, you talk about Rembrandt, you talk about Michelangelo, and all of those, like, I know the names. And I know that, I know that they're wonderful and I appreciate them, but, never been my thing for some reason.
And I'll just throw mine into the hat here. I'm not sure of the artist, but there's this painting, Van Goes to Disneyland. And there's Van Gogh stands there, and he's wearing a Mickey Mouse hat, and he's missing an ear.
That's funny.
But I love that painting.
I wonder who that is.
It's Van Gogh in Disneyland.
Van Goes to Disneyland.
Nelson de la Nuez.
Is that? I think that's the.
That's who it is.
I don't know if that's.
I think that. Well, then maybe that's just the spot. I don't know. He's looking it up right now.
I just googled it. Yeah.
But before we go over that, and I appreciate you asking the question, but. We kind of fucked it up for you. So let me jump back a second. So we actually have someone on Instagram right now, Freakon Emma, and she is specifically wondering, so in addition to them going to Art Attack, I mean, would you say that the best advice for young people that are just starting off as designers or artists is really to get a laser focus in on what it is that you love and that you want to spend your time doing?
Yeah, I think if you do what you love to do, everything will follow. Okay. I mean, the first thing is the love. You don't want to get caught in a lifestyle where you're chasing money just to chase money. And you could love money. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe it's evil. But I feel like if you do what you love to do, the money will follow. I don't feel vice versa. I feel like it will show. You have to have a pure joy of what you do. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be working at the post office. It could be doing, working in the gas company. It could be installing, pillows into, who knows? I'm just saying it could be anything as long as you love it. And I get, we can't all find that. And maybe you're working just to pay the bills. But I think with art in particular, like, you really got to love it. So, try to find what is your vision? What is your voice? What do you have to say? Like, I know what I have to say, and I know what, for me, at this point in my career, I just really enjoy the process. So the process is a lot about what I have to say. Yeah. And I believe my work will, change and evolve, and I hope it does. I hope to be better all the time. I'm a student. I'm a forever student. I just want to get better and learn and grow and change. And when you don't do that, you die.
Yeah. And that's tough. That's something that entrepreneurs especially go through all the time. I go through it all the time. And I think that writing for me has been that one true love. But it's like, again, society fucks me up because everyone says, you have to be in the top 0.001% to even make not even be rich and famous, but even make a living writing. I don't know that I'm buying that anymore just because of all the people that we've been interviewing and talking to. But that is definitely a thing that I come back to, though I've tried to figure out so many different business ventures and I've written out so many different business models, business plans and things. By the way, speaking back to your point when you were talking about, you don't, it's not until you can teach something that you truly learn. I think that's the same way when you're writing out business plans. For our audience, it's like, it's not until you really get into the business plan that you actually start to learn what it is that you could enjoy doing within that model. I know that's kind of tricky, but it's like, it's crazy how thoughts evolve like that. And I think that being able to, being able to put your actual thoughts on something like a tangible medium really changes the way that you think about it, and it evolves it a little bit. So, whether that's in art and painting, or whether that's in writing, or just writing out a business plan or something. I mean, it all kind of just flows together.
Listen, there's an art to everything.
Yeah.
There's an art to writing a business plan. Trust me, I'm not good at writing business plans. I've tried my luck at that, and I've put together decks for all kinds of business things, visual presentations, et cetera, and so on. But, I think at the end of the day, you really want to be good at what you do. For example, I'm putting together a catalog now. And this catalog, I thought this was going to take me 2 weeks. It's a catalog of my latest drawings and paintings. This catalog has taken me 6 months. So I can't even believe how long it's taken me.
Yeah, wow.
So I'll send you guys a catalog, too, in case you're interested in buying a Blue original.
Sure. Of course.
But the reality is that, like, if you want to do something, you got to do it right. You can't half-step anything. Picasso said he'd rather be a shitty artist than a mediocre one. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to go down the gray path of mediocrity.
Right.
You want to be, you want to make a statement. You want to have a voice. You want to do things well and to the highest level. Otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Right.
Like, what are you doing with your day? You're bullshitting. And you're lying. And that's why artists who aren't real artists, who perpetrate the fraud and say they are real artists, you can see that they're not. There's something off. Oftentimes people who really don't learn how to draw or paint to a decent level, they're crippled. So they've created a narrative to their art that's not real and authentic. Mm-hmm. And so they feel like there's something missing. And so they have to fill that with, nonsense and egomaniacal bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like there's a void there that can't be filled unless you go through the process.
What would you tell someone who is in that scenario?
I would say just, go back to the basics. Yeah. Like, learn to love drawing and painting. You look at Van Gogh's work. Van Gogh was never a great draftsman, but he was such an emotional artist. He was such a pure emotional artist. He was a great artist because you see his struggle. You see that he tries. He loves what he does. He's fighting it. He's going through it. And I feel like that's the plight of an artist. You have to go through it. But I feel like there's a lot of artists who just fake the funk and then pretend like, oh yeah, I've accomplished that. I've already done the drawing thing. It's like people who go to Europe. You see, that's why you're embarrassed as an American when you go to Europe, is to, like, you meet Americans at a Parisian cafe, and you're like, oh, where have you gone? Well, we did the Louvre, we did the d'Orsay, that's done. Then it's like, yeah, what are you talking about? It like you did it, like it's done.
check this, check box.
Like, that's embarrassing. You haven't done it. It's not done. There's endless things to see there and experience there. It's endless. So, like, it's just crazy. And that's how I feel a lot of artists are like, yeah, I did that. I'm done. I'm like the highest level. Now, that can be said by some people, and it's justifiable. But most people, they're not. I mean, Michelangelo was 81. He said, I'm just beginning to learn how to draw. That should say something. Yeah. That was one of the greatest draftsmen that ever lived. I feel like I'm, like, in the canon of art history, man, I got so far to go before I even attain any kind of, value to my work. Like, I got to work way harder, and it's hard because there's distractions and there's life and there's this. So, but I know where I'm at. Like, I'm not deluded. I'm not stupid. Like, I know that, like, I have strengths in this area and I have weaknesses in this area. And oftentimes in my career, I've attacked my weaknesses and made them strengths. And my strengths, because they've been not cultivated to a certain point, have then become my weaknesses. And so you got to keep going. And then there's other areas that I've avoided altogether because they're too painful. Yeah. So you gotta face those too. It's like therapy. If you want to become a better human being and effloresce into a more mature person, you got to go through your stuff. And art is in a lot of ways going through your stuff. Yeah. But if you don't face it and you don't do it, you won't go through it and you won't get better. So, I'm a victim of that myself. Like, sometimes I feel like, oh, did I just do a lazy? Like, was that a laziness? Like, or was it good enough? Like, I don't like that feeling. I feel like, I'm guilty. Like, that was just good enough. Like, you don't want it to be good enough.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here just digesting everything that you just said. That's beautiful. So, okay. going through this stuff. No, so I'm just trying to articulate what I'm saying, and it's tough because I'm like spun around right now. But is it? I don't even know if this is going to make sense, but tell me.
Sure.
Is an artist someone that sees the beauty, or does an artist need to be someone that can express it to other people? Or is that just a creative? You know what I'm saying? Like, how the hell?
Yeah, no, I think an artist is both. I think an artist sees the beauty. You know, I think Rembrandt saw the beauty and the ugliness. You know, when he portrayed Adam and Eve in the garden, and the expulsion of the garden, he shows Eve as a cellulite, hairy, distraught, ugly woman, and Adam as a bearded man, and just like, you know, crickety crunchety nose, and but yet it was executed with such anatomical brilliance and such beautiful line work. His etchings and his values and his composition were so gorgeous and so balanced, so advanced and high level and time. But it was ugly. You know what I mean? There was an ugliness. And so that's a literal interpretation of what you're saying. Yeah. So yes, an artist sees the beauty because we're attracted to beautiful things. There are different kind of artists, like Gustav Klimt, you know, The Kiss, the famous painting The Kiss, or Degas with his ballet dancers. They're attracted to the beauty, the beautiful subjects, and the beautiful women, and the beauty of art. You know, Klimt used a lot of gold leaf, so he's attracted to the gold, and the love, and the beauty of texture. Yeah. He loved the beauty of texture, and Degas loved the beauty of subject. And I think some artists, they're really attracted to that, and I think other artists are attracted to the ugliness, like George Grosz and Charles Bragg and Rembrandt. And I feel like it's another medium of humanity, whether it's beauty or ugly, and beautiful or ugly. And let's not, forget that's completely subjective.
Absolutely.
Right? When Rubens was painting beauty, all of his characters were voluptuous, and now that would be considered like, why did he paint fat girls? How's that beautiful? So the standard of beauty is also always changing. So that's a mythological idea of beauty, because it doesn't really exist, because it's too subjective, and it's also relative to the time and culture that you're from.
So true.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. But we're obviously, we're at an hour here. We're past the time that that we discussed prior to the interview. But I want to give one last thing to we touched a lot on art, which is amazing, and I'm really excited about it. And there's so many parallels, just like there is in any kind of industry, anything that anyone's doing. Everything that you're saying rings true for basically, for artists, for entrepreneurs, for just employees and managers, anybody. But if you can give one more thing to our listeners who are primarily entrepreneurs, what can you tell them to help them thrive in their business?
So number one, listen to the Art Attack podcast. Number two, Justin Bua, go.
Right. Our Art Attack podcast. Art Attack. No, I would say that, just stick to things that you believe you're great at. Because even though the average millionaire has 6 streams of revenue in different areas, try to do what you do with greatness. I have a friend who made, $100 million with widgets, just a little weird contraption that nobody ever thought of because he had an idea.
Did he do those damn spinning things, the ball bearings? Because God, I hate those.
I mean, think about the guy that developed rebar, right? Like, how rich is that dude? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, or sure bendy straws.
Yeah, just think about those people and. Whatever it is, if you believe in it and you stick with it. Now, look, I've seen entrepreneurs that are not necessarily entrepreneurs, but that have stuck with something so long they never let it die. That's a problem too. So there's a time in your career where sometimes you got to let it go. It's like a bad relationship. It's not honoring you. it's not elevating you. It's not advancing you. It's really just bringing you down. Like my chocolate bar, I come back to that because that was a failed business. My chocolate bar was a great idea. It was a great tasting bar, but it wasn't able to happen because I was in over my head in a space that I didn't know about, and I would have dropped my career as a painter to get into that career, and I would have had to go after capital and investors and forget it. It would have been a whole complete life change. And so I didn't need that landmark, the landmark life change moment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need that. I needed to just go, I got to put it down. Because for me to keep walking, it was too much weight. I had to put it down. Then I became lighter, more graceful, and I was able to go towards stuff that I was really good at. Yeah. So you got to really pick your lane, and you got to do it as well as you can do it. Put your heart into it. But when it's not working, don't think you could force a square into a circle, man, because you can't. Sometimes you just got to put it down. Other people out there, you might not want to hear it, but there's other people out there doing what you're doing, but they're doing it better.
Yeah.
So you know how it is. Sometimes they're doing it better, but you get to the finish line first. Great. That's great. But you got to do it with excellence, with care, and be ready to, if give yourself some time and give yourself those benchmarks. If it doesn't work, put it down. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. By the way, you brought up a landmark. Have you ever done that workshop?
No.
Okay. Because I did it when I was very young. It was
and
interesting.
I didn't hear good things about it.
Yeah, it was kind of culty, honestly.
Yeah, it's very culty.
But I think I was so fucked up as a kid that it actually triggered something in me to be helpful. I mean, I'm not so bad right now. So, but they used to call it the forum, right? And then they switched to landmark because the forum was too culty. And then,
well, here's the thing. Listen, man, you got something positive out of it. You know what I mean? If you're if you hate Scientology, but you had that one moment on niacin, you were doing the niacin flush, and you were like, damn, that was great. Right. I don't like Scientology, but whatever I just did with the niacin flush changed my life. So, hey, you got something great out of it.
I'd say anyone that invested money into personal development probably got something out of that even before they walked in the room. So
that's right.
Yeah, learning always,
so
right? Yeah, for sure.
$1, it's money spent well, because everything is an experience. Even the bad experiences can be good experiences. It's where your mind is at and what perspective you have. Man. So you got to change your perspective, and we all have to feel blessed. We're on this earth. The chance of us even getting to this earth, is almost like one in infinity. So we're here. We're human beings on this planet. We're blessed. We're in America. I mean, God damn, how lucky are we?
Yeah.
Now we're trying to be entrepreneurs. God damn, how lucky are we? I mean, some people don't like the word luck. I understand that because they feel like it means chance. But what you could supplement that with how blessed are we? Yeah. How grateful should we be? We should just be grateful. Yeah. So that's what I feel like. And the older I get, the more grateful I feel.
Amen. Yeah. Did you celebrate your 50th already, or is that coming later this year?
No. I celebrated my 50th. I had the best party ever. It was great. It was fun. It was super fun.
Killing it.
And I would have never said that, by the way, unless you didn't say that you were born in 68 earlier.
Hey, man, I look young. I had my boy Russell Peters, the comedian, came over and he DJ'd my party with my friend DJ Lito. It was really fun, man.
Feel free to invite us to 51, man.
What's that?
I said feel free to invite us to your 51st. We'd love to hang out with you.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I actually, after we hang up, I'm going to ask your guys' advice on podcasts because I have a question for you. So
okay. Sure, yeah.
Cool.
Well, before we do that, let's make this official and again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah. It's been a blast. It's
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's such a lot of our conversations, we get a lot out of them, but this one I really like it hit me in different ways.
It just felt so, it felt like warm. Like
maybe it's because it's the art talk, and we're we're putting all the the marketing, the branding stuff aside, and it's more real. Yeah, it's more real. But thank you so much for coming on the show, and
thank you for having me.
Where can we point people? We got your podcast, the Artit podcast. Where else can people find everything that you're doing?
Just Instagram. I go on Twitter once every 3 months. I go on Facebook once a month. So I would say Instagram, Justin Bua, JUSTINBUA. That's the best place to find me. If you want to ask me a question, you could direct message me. There's no one working my accounts. It's just me, kind of dealing with people. A lot of business is done through the back ends of, Instagram. And so I like Instagram because I'm able to share my work and share my process and, interact with artists and everybody, interact with my fans, and it's a really great platform for me. But it's pretty much the only platform that I pay any attention to whatsoever, because the other ones are it's too much. It's just too much for me.
It's if there's social. I said it's a lot. No, but it's the visual medium. It's probably the best thing.
It's a visual medium. Yeah, exactly.
So what about your catalog? If someone wants a catalog of you, should they just DM you, or what would you?
Just DM me. And this catalog is for. This catalog in particular is for really serious buyers because there's nothing in the catalog that's under $2,500 and. It goes all the way from $2,500 to $3.1 million. Right. So if you're a buyer and you'll want something in that price point, cool. Yeah, I mean, you could go to justinbua.com to check out my work. Absolutely. Please feel free. But I'm on Instagram is the best way because, like you said, it's a visual medium, and I think that's important.
Yeah, it's an amazing. I'm always I have you on my notifications whenever you post it, so I immediately see everything.
Texting me about shit you're doing. I'm like, dude, I know, but I gotta.
Might be a little creepy, but it's one of the more entertaining Instagram profiles out there. I'll tell you that right now.
Really?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's excellent.
I feel like I'm not good at it, but thank you for saying that because I'm just.
There's the people that the Instagrammers, that are out there.
They're in another level.
It's just different.
They're just using a bunch of bullshit software. And doing all their stuff.
And they have like 6 photographers around them at all times, and
Right. Yeah.
We're not. Nobody's
my photography is so bad.
Well, cool. Again, you can find him at Instagram.com/Justin Bua, and I'll link everything to the show notes. This is to our listeners. We'll link everything to the show notes. His podcast, his website, his Instagram. You can find everything there.
Thank you, guys.
Again,
thank you. What a pleasure. What an honor.
Absolutely.
And we hope to just get to know you better as the years go by, man.
Thank you, bro. The honor is mine.
For sure.
Awesome.